Welcome to the Star Past channel. Old photos that stayed hidden in the archives for years. Are you ready to see them? Please feel free to like and subscribe.
This photo comes from the period of The Left-Handed Gun, the 1958 Western starring Paul Newman as Billy the Kid, one of the most notorious outlaws of the American West. The surprising part is that Newman was already 33 when he played the much younger Billy the Kid. The film's title itself comes from a famous historical mistake. Billy was long believed to be left-handed, but his famous photograph was probably printed in reverse. Even more controversial, that single image helped create a false legend about Billy's identity and handedness. Instead of portraying him as a heroic Western gunslinger, the film presented Billy as violent, unstable, and deeply vulnerable. The movie was not a major commercial success at first, but it later became a cult and influential Western, with Newman's performance gaining greater recognition. So this isn't simply a photo of a Hollywood star. It connects to the story of a real outlaw whose legend was partly built on a photographic mistake. This photo, taken around 1940, shows Clark Gable and Carole Lombard, whose relationship became one of old Hollywood's most famous love stories. They first appeared together in a film in 1932, but they did not get along particularly well at the time and only fell in love years later. They secretly married on March 29, 1939 in Kingman, Arizona, while the press was intensely interested in their relationship. Despite their glamorous Hollywood lives, they were reportedly very close in private and enjoyed a relatively quiet life together at their ranch in Encino. But their love story ended tragically. On January 16, 1942, Lombard's plane crashed while she was returning from a war bond tour, killing her at just 33. Gable was devastated by her death and, only months later, joined the U.S. Army Air Forces and served during World War II. That makes this happy photograph especially haunting today, because just about 2 years later, Gable would suffer one of the greatest tragedies of his life. This photograph shows Groucho, Harpo, Chico, and Zeppo Marx around the production of Animal Crackers, released in 1930 and filmed at Paramount's Astoria Studios in Queens, New York. The four brothers played completely different characters, while the story unfolded at a wealthy Long Island party centered around the theft of a valuable painting. But the controversial part came later. Some of Groucho's jokes were cut from later reissues after Hollywood censorship became much stricter in 1934. Even part of Groucho's famous song, "Hooray for Captain Spaulding," was removed because of a sexual joke that was considered too provocative for later audiences. Even more surprising, a short experimental color film from the 1930 production survived, making it one of the rare surviving color glimpses of the Marx Brothers from that era. Animal Crackers was also the last Marx Brothers film shot at the Astoria Studios, marking the end of their New York filmmaking period before their move toward Hollywood. So this isn't simply a photograph of four famous comedians. It's a snapshot of the final days of the Marx Brothers' New York era, before Hollywood censorship and the studio system began changing the rules of comedy. This photo was taken on March 19, 1953, at the 25th Academy Awards in Hollywood's RKO Pantages Theater, the night the Oscars were televised for the very first time. Beside Elizabeth Taylor is her second husband, Michael Wilding. Taylor was only 21 and had become a mother for the first time just about 10 weeks earlier. The marriage looked glamorous from the outside, but it lasted only a few years, ending in separation in 1956 and divorce in 1957. Wilding was a well-known British actor and nearly 20 years older than Taylor, yet his place in her story was later overshadowed by her far more scandalous marriages. Taylor herself was not an acting nominee that night, although her film Ivanhoe was nominated for Best Picture. Gary Cooper and Shirley Booth won the leading acting awards, while The Greatest Show on Earth took Best Picture. Perhaps the most intriguing part is that this image captures Taylor just before her private life became as legendary and controversial as her Hollywood career, leading eventually to her explosive romance with Richard Burton and a string of headline-making marriages. On March 25, 1954, Audrey Hepburn won the Best Actress Oscar for Roman Holiday, her first and only competitive acting Oscar. But behind this elegant moment was a surprisingly chaotic Hollywood story. Hepburn was performing in the play Undine that same night and rushed to the ceremony immediately after her performance. She still had her stage makeup and costume when she arrived, quickly changed into her Oscar dress, and entered while the ceremony was already underway. When her name was announced, she was so overwhelmed that she took a wrong turn and briefly ended up backstage, and later somehow lost her Oscar, which was eventually found in the theater's ladies' room. The dress itself has a fascinating story. It was originally designed by Edith Head for Roman Holiday and then reworked for the Oscars with a strong influence from Hubert de Givenchy. The film received 10 nominations and won 3 Oscars, but one of those wins was tied to a Hollywood blacklist controversy involving screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, whose credit was officially corrected decades later. So this isn't simply a photo of Audrey Hepburn accepting an Oscar. It captures a 24-year-old star, overwhelmed and slightly lost, stepping into Hollywood history. On March 2, 1944, Jennifer Jones won the Best Actress Oscar for The Song of Bernadette, defeating major contenders including Ingrid Bergman for Whom the Bell Tolls. But behind that smile, one of Hollywood's most talked-about love triangles was beginning to unfold. Jones was married to actor Robert Walker while secretly becoming involved with powerful producer David O. Selznick. Selznick was married too, and the affair eventually contributed to Jones's separation from Walker, followed years later by Jones and Selznick's marriage in 1949. Even more fascinating, Bergman won Best Actress the following year for Gaslight, and Jennifer Jones herself presented her with the Oscar, giving Hollywood a perfect twist of fate. The Song of Bernadette was one of the night's biggest successes, earning 11 nominations and 4 wins, while Casablanca took Best Picture. The ceremony also took place during World War II and marked the Oscars' first event in a large public venue, Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. So this isn't simply a photo of 2 actresses celebrating. It captures a night when a young Oscar winner, her future rival, and one of Hollywood's most scandalous backstage romances were all part of the same story. This photo comes from the 1942 musical For Me and My Gal, which marked Gene Kelly's first movie appearance and one of Judy Garland's first truly adult roles. The two had remarkable chemistry on screen, but their relationship behind the scenes was largely professional, with Garland even helping Kelly adapt his stage acting for the camera. The biggest drama came after test audiences hated the original ending and insisted that Garland's character should end up with George Murphy, not Gene Kelly. MGM boss Louis B. Mayer took the reaction so seriously that he ordered 3 weeks of reshoots, making Kelly's character more heroic and reducing Murphy's role. The original ending was eventually lost, although its soundtrack survived and was released decades later. The film also launched a memorable screen partnership, with Garland and Kelly later reuniting in The Pirate and Summer Stock. So behind this glamorous Hollywood photograph is a surprisingly juicy story about a future superstar's first film, backstage conflict, and an ending rewritten because audiences demanded it. Elvis Presley is seen here signing autographs for fans during his military service in West Germany, a period that lasted from 1958 to 1960. Even after leaving behind the stage in the life of a rock star, his fame followed him everywhere, and fans still gathered around him for autographs. Elvis was stationed near Friedberg and spent part of his time in Bad Nauheim, where his presence attracted enormous attention. One of the funniest details in the photo is that he appears to be using the little boy's head like a writing desk while signing an autograph. But Elvis's military years were about more than escaping fame. During this period, he met Priscilla Beaulieu, who was only 14 at the time and would later become his wife. Their relationship eventually became one of the most famous and controversial chapters of Elvis's private life, especially because of their age difference and the circumstances surrounding their first meeting. So this isn't just a picture of a superstar signing autographs. It captures 24-year-old Elvis at a moment when even the U.S. Army couldn't separate him from fame, fans, and controversy. This photo comes from the 1968 musical Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, starring Dick Van Dyke as Caractacus Potts, and based on a book by Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond. Interestingly, the movie moved far away from Fleming's original book, with writers including Roald Dahl turning the story into something much more fantastical and bizarre. The film was an extremely expensive production for its time and was produced by Albert Broccoli, the legendary producer behind the James Bond series. Much of the movie was filmed at Pinewood Studios in England, making it a huge production that stretched from 1967 into 1968. But the production was not completely smooth. Dick Van Dyke suffered a leg injury during filming, affecting the production schedule. The most controversial element was probably the child catcher, a terrifying character whose scenes were shockingly dark for what appeared to be a children's movie and became nightmare fuel for generations. That is why Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is more than a cheerful family musical. It hides a massive production, an on-set injury, and one of the creepiest characters in family film history. This photo comes from the 1941 film Penny Serenade, the third and final movie pairing of Irene Dunne and Cary Grant. But this time, they were starring in a deeply emotional story about marriage, infertility, loss, and adoption rather than a light romantic comedy. In the film, their characters lose their own child and adopt a little girl named Trina, who eventually becomes the center of a devastating crisis in their marriage. The most emotional twist comes when the family falls into financial trouble and Roger has to fight in court to keep his adopted daughter. Grant's breakdown became one of the most memorable dramatic performances of his career. Grant later explained that director George Stevens deliberately avoided extreme close-ups during the crying scene, making the emotion feel more natural and believable. The performance was so different from Grant's usual image that it earned him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor in 1942, although Gary Cooper won for Sergeant York. There was also an unusual production detail involving the baby. California law strictly limited how long infants could work on film sets, so the studio used twins to play Trina. So behind this seemingly peaceful family photograph is one of Grant's most heartbreaking films, a story of love, infertility, losing a child, adoption, and a father emotionally breaking down in court to keep his daughter. This photo dates from the production period of Spellbound, Alfred Hitchcock's psychological thriller, filmed in 1944 and released in 1945, starring Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck. But behind this professional partnership was a Hollywood secret. Both stars were married at the time, yet Peck later admitted that he and Bergman had a brief but intense romantic affair during filming. The affair remained private until 1987, 5 years after Bergman's death, when Peck revealed it in an interview with People magazine. Ironically, their real-life romance happened while they were making a film about a woman falling in love with a man whose identity and past are deeply mysterious, a strange mix of love, psychoanalysis, and suspicion. The movie also featured a famous dream sequence designed by Salvador Dali. The original concept was much longer, but most of it was cut before the final release. The film went on to receive several Oscar nominations, with Miklos Rozsa winning the Academy Award for Best Original Score. So this isn't simply a photograph of two Hollywood legends. It captures the era of a secret affair between two married stars, decades of silence, and a confession that finally exposed the romance years later. This photo is from the 1961 film West Side Story, starring Natalie Wood and Richard Beymer as Maria and Tony, two lovers caught between rival street gangs in New York. The image comes from the film's tragic ending when Tony is shot by Chino and dies in Maria's arms, echoing the ending of Romeo and Juliet. One of the film's biggest controversies was its casting. White actress Natalie Wood played a Puerto Rican girl, while many other Puerto Rican characters were also played by white actors. Even Rita Moreno, the film's only major Puerto Rican star, was given darker makeup for the role of Anita, something that later drew heavy criticism. There was another surprising secret. The singing voices of Natalie Wood and Richard Beymer were not actually their own. Marni Nixon and Jimmy Bryant performed the songs for their characters. Despite the controversy, the film dominated the 1962 Oscars, winning 10 awards out of 11 nominations, including Best Picture. So behind this beautiful but heartbreaking scene was a movie that became a musical masterpiece while remaining controversial for its ethnic stereotypes, casting choices, and hidden singing voices. This photo comes from the 1964 production of The Sound of Music, when Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer were filming in Salzburg, Austria. Behind their successful partnership, however, was an interesting Hollywood story. Both stars were going through troubled marriages, and Andrews later admitted that she had a crush on Plummer, although their relationship never became romantic. Unlike the romantic image of the movie, Plummer was not particularly fond of making it and jokingly referred to it for years as The Sound of Mucus. Still, he considered working with Andrews one of the best parts of the experience. Even their romantic scenes were not always easy to film. Andrews reportedly kept laughing during the gazebo scene, forcing the crew to shoot more than 20 takes before changing the scene to a silhouette. Much of the movie was filmed in Salzburg, and heavy rain extended the planned 6-week location shoot to 11 weeks. Yet the result was enormous. At the 1966 Oscars, the film won 5 awards from 10 nominations, including Best Picture, becoming one of the biggest successes in cinema history. So this is more than a photograph of two beloved stars. It captures an unfulfilled crush, an actor who disliked the movie, and a difficult Austrian production that ultimately created a timeless classic. This photo is from the 1938 film You Can't Take It With You, starring Jean Arthur and James Stewart as Alice and Tony, two lovers from completely different families. The scene is connected to the famous Big Apple dance, which was a major craze in America at the time. Neighborhood children teach Tony and Alice the dance for 10 cents. The funny part is that the dance later causes trouble at an upscale party when the "Learn the Big Apple" sign becomes attached to Alice's dress, and she unknowingly walks into the party with it. The more interesting story, however, was behind the camera. Jean Arthur was already a major Hollywood star, while Stewart was still near the beginning of his journey toward becoming one of cinema's most famous actors. Made for a budget of roughly $1.6 million, Frank Capra's film mixed romantic comedy with a sharp contrast between wealth, social status, and the freedom to simply enjoy life. At the 1939 Oscars, the film won Best Picture and Best Director and received 7 nominations overall. Interestingly, this was also one of James Stewart's important early pairings with a major female star, and his on-screen chemistry with Arthur helped make the film one of the memorable classics of Hollywood's golden age. This photo dates from the period of Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart's relationship in 1945, a romance that began during To Have and Have Not in 1944 and quickly became Hollywood gossip. Bacall was only 19 or 20 when she met Bogart, while he was 44 or 45, giving them an age gap of roughly 25 years. Even more scandalous, Bogart was still married to Mayo Method when his relationship with Bacall began, forcing the couple to keep their romance secret for a time. Director Howard Hawks strongly disapproved of the relationship and even tried to pressure Bacall, but their chemistry was so powerful that the screenplay was changed to emphasize their romance. Bogart finally divorced Method on May 10, 1945, and just 11 days later, on May 21st, he married 20-year-old Bacall at Malabar Farm in Ohio. Despite Hollywood's predictions that the marriage would not last, they stayed together until Bogart's death in 1957 and had 2 children. So behind this simple photograph is much more than 2 movie stars. It is the story of a secret affair, a 25-year age gap, a collapsing marriage, and a romance that became one of Hollywood's most legendary love stories. This photo shows Jack Lemmon with his son Chris during the early years of Lemmon's rise to fame in the 1950s, when he was moving from television into major Hollywood stardom. Chris was Lemmon's son with his first wife, actress Cynthia Stone. Their marriage lasted 6 years, and after the divorce, Jack remained closely involved in his son's life despite living separately. The timing was especially important for Jack. In 1955, he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor from Mr. Roberts, helping establish him as a major Hollywood star. But the less glamorous side of their story is that their relationship was not always perfect. Chris later described it as a complicated mix of love, competition, distance, and judgment. Chris eventually entered the entertainment world himself, following his father into acting and creating a career of his own. Even more surprisingly, father and son developed a family tradition of annual fishing trips into the Alaskan wilderness, which Jack considered an important way to strengthen their bond. So behind this innocent-looking photograph is a story of divorce, Hollywood fame, a complicated father-son relationship, and a son who eventually understood just how complicated life with a famous father could be. This photo was taken in Washington, D.C. on February 11, 1964, near the U.S. Capitol, right at the height of Beatlemania in America. From left to right are George Harrison, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, and Ringo Starr, who were only 20 to 23 years old at the time. Just 2 days earlier, more than 73 million Americans had watched the Beatles make their historic first appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. That same day, they were scheduled to play their first American concert at the Washington Coliseum in front of roughly 8,000 fans. Their trip was disrupted by a major snowstorm, forcing them to travel from New York to Washington by train, while crowds of fans waited outside in the snow. These 4 young men had no idea they would soon become one of the most controversial bands in history, especially John Lennon, whose later political statements and infamous Jesus comparison would trigger outrage and even Beatles-related boycotts in America. In other words, this image captures the moment when 4 young British musicians were transforming from pop stars into a global cultural phenomenon. This photo dates to 1942 and shows Rita Hayworth and Fred Astaire rehearsing for You Were Never Lovelier. It was taken by Hollywood photographer Earl Thiessen at Columbia Pictures in Los Angeles. It was the pair's second and final film together, and at the time, Hayworth was 23 while Astaire was 43, a striking 20-year age gap. But there was a Hollywood secret behind the glamorous image. Hayworth wanted to sing her own songs, yet her vocals were dubbed by singer Nan Wynn, and the studio kept it largely hidden at the time. Even their dance rehearsals had a bizarre twist. Because Columbia lacked enough rehearsal space, they practiced in a funeral parlor on the grounds of a Hollywood cemetery, stopping whenever a funeral ceremony took place. Their famous dance to I'm Old-Fashioned became one of the era's memorable screen duets, while the film's title dance was actually cut after preview screenings. The movie earned Oscar nominations for its music, sound, and the song Dearly Beloved, and Hayworth later said it was one of her favorite films. So this is far more than a glamorous rehearsal photo. It captures Hollywood stardom, a hidden singing double, a controversial age gap, and 2 stars rehearsing beside funeral ceremonies. This photo was taken in 1950 on the set of Rio Grande, directed by John Ford. But the boy standing beside John Wayne is his real son, Patrick Wayne, not his son in the film. Patrick was only 11 years old, and the movie became one of his earliest experiences working alongside his legendary father. The film was shot around Monument Valley, Utah, and nearby locations, and it also marked the first screen pairing of John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. Behind the movie was a strange Hollywood deal. Ford wanted to make The Quiet Man, but he agreed to make this Western first in order to get that project financed. Even more disturbing, 2 stunt performers drowned during the filming of a river sequence, highlighting just how dangerous movie production could be in that era. Patrick later appeared alongside his father in several films, while also trying to build an identity of his own outside the enormous shadow of the Wayne family name. So this isn't simply a photo of John Wayne with his son. It captures the moment when a legendary Hollywood star brought his 11-year-old son into his world, a decision that would shape Patrick's life and career.
This photograph was taken on March 1, 1954, and shows three future Hollywood icons: Tony Curtis, Rock Hudson, and Robert Wagner. Despite many online captions, 1955 is not the accurate date. The image was part of Life magazine's campaign to introduce Hollywood's next generation of leading men, featured in its May 31, 1954 issue. What makes it fascinating is that none of the three had yet reached the legendary status they would later achieve. The magazine was essentially presenting them as the new generation of Hollywood heartthrobs. That same year, Rock Hudson made a major breakthrough with Magnificent Obsession, while Tony Curtis was rapidly becoming one of the leading stars of the 1950s. Robert Wagner was younger and still at the beginning of his career, and later recalled this period as part of Hollywood's carefully managed star-making system. Fan magazines even ranked Hudson ahead of Curtis and Wagner among the era's most popular male stars, showing that these young actors were genuinely competing for the spotlight. So behind this playful latter photograph lies a revealing side of old Hollywood. Studios and magazines weren't just reporting on stars, they were helping create the stars the public would eventually worship.